It's Tuesday, May 1st. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we review an awesome board game called Vinci. Let's do this.
So since I was in Rochester for the weekend, I did get a chance to go to Millennium Games, the pretty much undisputably best gaming store in the United States.
There might be a better gaming store somewhere. I mean, I went to the Complete Strategist in New York City, and sure, they have more games total, I guess, and the games they have more copies of them than Millennium does. But really, Millennium is a better store overall. They have a wider variety of types of games.
Dude,
and they have...
it's a gaming store that is full of people from when it opens early in the morning until when it closes late at night every single day, no matter what.
And it only sells games, not like the local Dragon's Den, which is okay, but it's also a comic book store and a video game store and an airsoft store and an everything geeky store, whereas Millennium is just a gaming store and nothing else.
Well, I was there, and of course, every time I go to Rochester, I buy board games, because while I can buy them online, buying them at Millennium is always the best deal. There's no shipping. It's just perfect. Plus, the people there know a lot about games. If I walk up and say, hey, how's such and such? They know everything about it.
Yep. Also, buying board games in person is, especially if you've never played the game before, is sort of a must. You don't buy a game you've never played or looked at before on the internet, just looking at pictures on Board Game Geek. That's not enough to decide. You either have to play it and then buy it online, or read the rules and then buy it on, or something. But if you're in person with the game in a box, you can tell from the box and from Board Game Geek you can tell if that's something you're worth buying right now or not. Generally.
Well, I did pick up, it costs a lot, it was $60. I hope it's worth it, but I figure I would pay a lot of money for a good two-player game.
Yep.
You might have heard about our troubles of finding two-player games that don't suck after Hellas.
Hellas, the worst game.
No, it wasn't the worst game I've played.
What worst game have you played?
I can think of a few. A lot of video games. Candyland's pretty bad. Monopoly's pretty bad.
Oh, the Unspeakable game for the GameCube?
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one.
But yeah, I got Twilight Struggle, which is a really different kind of game from the kind of games we normally play. And I'm not going to get into any detail. We're going to review it once we've played it, which might be a while because it's a complicated game.
Yeah.
It's basically an abstracted, historical pseudo-simulation of the entirety of the Cold War.
Yep. However, whereas other games, lean more towards the simulation of history, this game goes that way, but it leans back, it never abandons its gameness. And it's also a card war game as opposed to a miniatures war game.
So it's basically an asymmetric card-based war game for two players.
Yep. And there are apparently a lot of games like this, but according to everyone who likes these kind of games, this is the one.
Yes, partly because it doesn't take 8 hours to play like some of the other ones do.
Yep. If this one is good, I'll buy Shifting Sands, which is a similar game in the way it works.
Also, I gotta say, the cover art sold me on it, even if I didn't know anything about this game. The cover art just so perfectly says everything this game is about.
I think if this game lives up to my expectation, I think the only disappointment will be that it's only a two-player game. Because it's the kind of game like, yes, we have a two-player game. No, it's only two-player, and it's so great. Why can't we enjoy it with more than two?
The one cool thing I want to point out, though, is that it's a game that involves the Cold War, the possibility of nuclear war. Anytime there's a game that involves nuclear war, there's always the point at which all the nukes get launched, and it's awesome.
Like Civilization.
Yes.
Whee, I got the nukes. Nuke.
Yep. Or I've got the nukes. There's a bug in the game. I now have 1,000 fortified nukes sitting off the coast of Europe just waiting for Russia to start shit.
Yep.
But in this game, there's DEFCON levels and all that. If you reach DEFCON 1 and nuclear war breaks out...
Pretty much, which is guaranteed at DEFCON 1.
The game ends, and whoever started the nuclear war loses, regardless
it's
of how
not
the game is
whoever
going.
started the nuclear war.
Whoever causes the nuclear war to happen.
That's not what the rule is. I read the rule.
Yes, it is.
It's actually if it's your turn and the nuclear war starts. So let's say
Yes, however, the way events work, if it's your event, then it's now effectively your turn while it happens.
However, let's say I do something and you have a decision whether nuclear war should start or not, because it rests based on some other factor, whether the DEFCON level will decrease, then you might force it to decrease because it's my turn, and then nuclear war breaks out.
From what I read, any case where you can force it to decrease would almost every time, if not every single time, be when you were phasing, and then you would lose.
Well, I don't know. We're going to have to play this game a few times to get all the
But
kinks
it's not like
that
other
out.
games where nuclear war is the end. Like, you're waiting for it. You expect it. It's the fun part of the game.
It's
nuclear
the
war
thing
is the,
to be avoided.
it's the end of the game because you failed. You lost the Cold
and
War.
that's only one of the ends of the game. All the other ends of the game are much more preferable.
However, I'm thinking what we should do is every time we play this game, if there's a nuclear war, we should just play DEF CON.
And
then declare
we got to
a winner.
wait for new PCs to play DEF CON.
Any day, any day. I think tonight's the night. I think I've hammered out all of my long-standing issues with buying a new computer.
Well, we'll see.
But in actual news, Nintendo's been doing pretty well with this whole Wii thing.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. They've been doing so well, but they haven't been selling any games, have they? Well, I mean, they sold 500,000 Pokemons,
Well-
but other than that, not too many games coming for
Here's
Nintendo.
the thing. Nintendo hasn't been making very many games, and I think the reason is they haven't needed to, because in the previous year, the fiscal year, Nintendo's profits, operating profit, not revenue, but straight up profit, jumped 150%, and they made almost 1 trillion yen. That's like $8 billion US.
It's still not Bill Gates level of money, but that's pretty big money.
And remember,
right there.
that's profit. Their revenues are insane.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. It's like, the company, above and all other things, is trying to make profit, right? But they're also a company that makes entertainment for people. And the people like the entertainment the company produces. But if the company is profiting, they will see less and less reason to take risks and make more interesting entertainment for the people. So in a way, them profiting is good for us because they will still be around to make more entertainment. But it's bad because they're not making enough.
I have to make a little clarification because I'm actually looking at a different article from what I read before, and the other article was a little confused. They made a trillion yen in revenue, and they made 226 billion yen in profit, which is still a lot.
That's still a lot of fucking money.
Yeah, and they've sold to date, well, in the last year alone, 23 million DS units and 123 million software units.
Yeah. See, I can only think that, like, if they weren't profiting, they'd be gone. There wouldn't be any Nintendo action, right? But if they were profiting just a little bit, right, or just enough, but not crazily like they are profiting, then they'd be putting out all kinds of awesome games to try to make more money. But now, because the profits are crazy, we're going to see a game drought for about a year.
But they sold just shy of 6 million Wiis, and they expect to sell another 14 million next year.
They've sold at least 1 million Pokemons. I mean, they pre-ordered 500,000 Pokemons, or like 250,000 Pokemons in the U.S. alone, not counting the Japanese Pokemons. And that's just one game. One game. Good God.
Well, for the current fiscal year, the company has forecast sales of 22 million more DSs and 130 million more.
They think
DS
they're going to sell
software
22
sales
million more DSs than have already been sold?
in this fiscal year alone.
Oh my God. All right, if anyone still has their doubts about the DS being the king and the Wii just being kind of for the year to come, you're wrong.
So despite the fact that Nintendo has made these record profits and these record revenues and these record sales, they're predicting a better fiscal year next year.
Oh my God.
They're predicting sales to increase increasingly.
Yeah, you know why? Because they'll actually have some goddamn games next year to freaking sell.
Well, the thing is, the Wii is still selling pretty much on the virtue of Wii Bowling.
Yep, that's pretty much all it's selling on right now. And Zelda.
And Zelda. But I think now, anyone who was buying a Wii for Zelda has a Wii. And I think most of the people who are buying Wiis are those, non-gamers who Wii Sports is amazing and they want to get it and it's cheap and it's cool and now they're suddenly into gaming and they'll be satisfied for a long time.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are really happy with their virtual console action. I'm like, a lot of people are dumb enough to buy all those things. I mean, virtual console money reportedly has gone down, but it's still crazy high how many people are buying those games.
Well, because it's almost 100% profit. You already own the property. It doesn't take much to port it over.
You hire 2 college-aged cheapo programmers to make sure the game works in the emulator on the Wii, and then you put it up on the website.
And you know what? Considering that they know exactly how the Nintendo worked, I don't think it was hard for them to make a Nintendo emulator that was perfect.
Now, I'm pretty sure they already had some lying around, because when you play like a GameCube game, like for example, Sonic Mega Collection, right? Sonic Mega Collection for the GameCube is basically a bunch of Sonic the Hedgehog games. 1, 2, 3, Spinball, Sonic and Knuckles, etc. And it's on a GameCube disc. You know what's on that disc? Basically the ROMs of those Sonic games and a Genesis emulator. That's what's on that disc. Like Midway Arcade Classics 2 that had Rampart was basically MAME on a disc with a Rampart ROM. That's all those things are. So it's not too hard to put the emulator in the console and then download the ROMs.
All right, there's a lot of numbers here, and it doesn't even matter. So don't even worry about the numbers I said, because the point is Nintendo is doing so stupidly well that they could just cancel the Wii right now. They could just say, all right, Wii's done, no more games, and they still made out like bandits.
Yep. All right, so speaking of consoles, the Xbox 360. You know that Elite thing that they came out with? It's basically the best Xbox Elite. It has a bigger hard drive, it has a HDMI hole, right, and it's black. Apparently, it's not so hot. It costs more than the premium. It does have a bigger hard drive, and it is black. The HDMI, according to reports of people, just, subjective, just people saying what their personal opinion is.
What you should actually say is some guy on the internet says.
Some guy on the internet says the HDMI doesn't look any better than the not HDMI on the premium. This thing is not the greatest buy because it doesn't really offer you anything above the premium Xbox 360 other than increased cost, black plastic, and a bigger hard drive.
But the black plastic.
Yeah, I know. Well, if the bigger hard drive is enough for you, if the smaller hard drive of the premium was keeping you down and you've got money to burn and you really play your Xbox a lot and you buy the Elite and you use the HDMI, which doesn't offer anything, you buy this thing. Well, now you got to take all your data from your old Xbox hard drive and move it to the new Xbox hard drive. You can't just take the old Xbox hard drive out and put it in the new Xbox.
That would kind of defeat the point of having the bigger hard drive.
Well, not only that, but it does. Your old hard drive is not encased in the black plastic. It's white, so it's not going to look too good. Not only that, but all the stuff on your Xbox hard drive is DRM to hell. They can't just let you just copy it from one drive to another.
All right, DRM, everybody's friend.
Yeah, I mean, it would be easy enough. I mean, it's a USB hard drive, I'm pretty sure. You could just plug it into your computer and copy all the data from one drive to another. But this DRM, so that wouldn't work because you can't copy data. If you copy it, then the DRM locks in and now nothing works. So if you buy an Xbox 360 Elite, if you want to transfer your data from your old hard drive to your new hard drive, you have to get the Xbox 360 Data Migration Kit.
I like how they say if you want. Like there are people who don't want to.
Yep. To get the kit, you have to print out a PDF, fill it out with all sorts of numbers from I guess your serial number of your Xbox 360s and stuff like that. Mail it to Indiana. They will decide if you should receive a kit or not. I assume they probably will most of the time. And then they will mail you your kit for free. At least it's free.
Decide if I need a kit or not.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, just to let you know, if you're thinking about replacing your premium with an Elite, which is a stupid waste of money, which it wouldn't be a waste of money if the Elite at least had Wi-Fi or something. But it doesn't even have that. It has nothing, basically. Then you're going to need to fill out this form and mail it because it says on the form that it's a limited time offer, it's subject to product availability, and subject to change without notice. So this offer might not last very long. If you wait too long to buy your Elite, you might be SOL. You might have to pay some money to get the kit, or they might not make kits anymore, and you'll have to buy one on eBay from someone for a ludicrous price, or who knows. Just to let you know, you people there with your DRMs and your 360s.
Things of the day. For the last several weeks, I've been really trying to have things of the day that aren't just on Dig. And I've realized now that is basically becoming impossible. Because one, either everything good is already on Dig. I mean, anything that is on Dig and gets near the top is probably a candidate for being thing of the day, especially if it's a video. Because that's already like the top 1% of the internet. But two, anytime I put forth all the effort to find something out there that didn't make it to Dig yet, it makes it to Dig long before I get a chance to use it as a thing of the day, thus defeating the point of finding it ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff, if I find something in the morning to use as a thing of the day that night, it's going to be on Dig sometime during the day. There's no way around it. And if I find something right before the show, by the time you listen to the show, you'll see it on Dig the next day. So unless I make the show, I find a thing of the day. Unless the thing of the day appears on the internet at like 9 p.m., I put it in the show, and then you listen at midnight. Even then, 50 shot, it's going to be on Dig. So what can we do about it?
Thus, I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm going to use whatever I saw, like the original theme of, things of the day, the coolest thing I saw in the last 24 hours.
Yep, whatever it happens to be, we don't care where it comes from. If it ends up being shit on Dig that everyone's seen, it's too bad. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, because you know what? Now, think of it this way. The three of you who complained that all of our news and things of the day are just fark/.dig. One, we don't provide news. We provide commentary on news, so you can die in a fire. See, even though you might have already seen the video of the guy getting hit in the nuts, or the other guy getting hit in the nuts, or the guy falling and then getting hit in the nuts, we provide commentary on the video of the guy getting hit in the nuts.
Oh, man, I totally didn't see that guy was going to get hit in the nuts. It came out of nowhere. Oh, that was probably the worst hit in the nuts I've ever seen. I mean, you think the testicle went right back up to where it came from? I don't know.
Oh, but look at the video it links to at the related videos. That guy gets hit in the nuts twice.
Oh.
Now, that aside, my thing of the day, I had something else, like I often do, and then I saw this, and I thought I was going to click on it, decide, wow, that guy's crazy, not even bother talking about it, and move on. It's a long video, too. It's about 8 minutes, but I'd recommend you watch the whole thing. And it's kind of complicated how I feel about this video. Basically, it's a crazy guy.
It's definitely a crazy guy. There is no doubt about it.
This
he's
guy?
Not that crazy. Like, remember the pedophile in Australia?
Oh, God. No, he's not
that crazy, but he's definitely a crazy middle-of-the-woods guy.
He's lucid, in the very least, and he is intelligent. He reminds me a lot of the people who form the Michigan militia and live in the wilds of Michigan, just waiting for the day when they can rise up and restore patriotism and the Constitution.
He reminds me just like the crazy old man who lives down the road who yells at kids to get off his lawn. That's pretty much what he is.
Well, I knew a lot of people like that in Michigan, who are just like this guy, get off my property. Get off my property, Constitution. But the guy definitely rants in that little bit out of it, probably really was trying to hide something kind of person.
Yeah, I'm betting 90% he's hiding something.
I wouldn't be surprised if the follow-up to this is, yeah, they got a court order and bodies as far as the eye can see. Mass murder.
It could be. It very well could be, but that's not the point.
But the situation, and the reason I find it so interesting, is that there are 3 actors in this situation. Actor number 1, the main character, the unseen voice behind the camera.
The crazy guy.
Basically a crazy middle-of-the-woods guy who, they was on my property. I has my rights. That kind of person.
Yep.
The kind of person who knows and has memorized every law that will ever help them get away with something shady.
Mm-hmm.
Actor number 2, the stupid police officer, who's not entirely stupid, but he spends most of the video mouth breathing, obviously not fully understanding what's going on, and obviously not wanting to be involved.
Yep.
And then, actor number 3, the angry, frustrated, and yet somewhat not understanding possibly of the law, federal or state bureaucrat, whatever.
Yep, she's some health inspector lady of some sort, and she's trying to inspect this guy's property. She tried to inspect the property before, and he didn't let her on the property because he doesn't have to.
Now, the situation is basically that she had come and tried to inspect his property, and she said, I'm from the government, you have to let me on. And the guy, who obviously knows his rights, said, where's your warrants?
Yep.
Where's your court order? Where's some sort of document?
And while he's a crazy guy, probably hiding something, he's right. Crazy guys aren't always wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the woman didn't have a court order or anything. So unless there's some crazy law in this state that allows this or something we don't know about.
And if there is such a law, it's probably an unconstitutional law.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
We don't really know.
No,
but
I
the
don't.
point is that this woman didn't seem to have any sort of backing on her side. I mean,
Yeah,
the guy
I mean,
is like...
She could have been... Like, imagine if some state health inspector, right, has a state health inspector badge.
Like our friend Pete.
Right. What if they just show up at your house, like... How do they know she's even on the job? This is even an assignment. She could just be someone who has the job of inspector with a badge, using it to sneak onto your property.
Well, actually, when I worked for the feds back in right after high school, my first job, I had It wasn't a metal badge, but I had a badge that said that I was a federal employee and blah, blah, blah. And I totally could have scammed people into letting me do all sorts of things with that if I was a jackass.
Yeah. So without a warrant or something, I don't think that he should have to let her on his property, no matter how crazy or nutty he is.
I wouldn't have let her on my property.
I also would not have let her on my property.
Now, the thing is, if she had come back with an argument along the lines of, like, here's the law that says I have the right to come on your property. It is a section blah, whatever.
Or here's a court order signed by a judge. Here's a warrant for searching.
Then I would have let him on, and this guy probably would have too.
Yep.
Or he would have gone nuts with the shotgun, but we're not sure about that.
I don't know, because he didn't go nuts with the shotgun in the video, so I don't think he was ever going to go nuts with the shotgun. He was going nuts with the video camera, which is pretty good, because that means he's not that crazy.
But basically the woman is saying, I'm allowed to be here. I'm allowed to trespass and look at your shit. And the guy's saying, according to this specific law that I've memorized and this part of the Indiana State Constitution that I also have memorized.
And the federal Constitution of the United States of America.
You do not have this right.
You do not. You must leave.
The police officer is trying to convince the guy. The police officer seems to know that he doesn't have the right. Because one...
The cop is smart and dumb at the same time.
I point out that the cop, very pointedly, does not step on the guy's property.
Yes, you might not realize, but in most states, there is like a certain number of feet varying by town or state, wherever you live, in from the street that is not your property. For example, my parents' house, right? Their house borders street. Their driveway touches a street. The grass that is within 10 feet of that street belongs to the town. So at one point in time, there was a tree on that part of the property that was dead and going to fall over. The town had to cut it down for free because it was on the town's property. However, if the town decides to make the street wider, not much my parents can do about it. Also, my parents are responsible for mowing that grass. You can't just not mow it, or else the town comes and yells at you for not maintaining the property.
Yep, I knew a lot of people who had property where they basically have a gigantic yard, but half of the yard was in a federal or a state easement. And the deal was basically they get to use the property, do whatever they want with it. In a lot of cases, they could even fence it in. They just weren't allowed to build anything on it. And if they did, that's fine.
Your mailbox can go there.
But the state could tear it down if they ever wanted to.
Yep.
And my grandparents had it was a military thing, because there's a military base nearby, where the government could, at any time if they wanted to, it was already in all the deeds and all the land, build a road that went between all these houses where they lived.
Yeah. So this cop, despite saying a lot of stupid things, he doesn't leave the easement, and he is very smart.
Yes, and the woman seems to be like, well, are you going to help me? And the cop's like, you're on your own, lady.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to
He's like, I'm not going to stop you, but I'm not going to... But the thing is, the cop keeps trying to convince the guy with the argument of, if you got nothing to hide, just let her in, because you got nothing to hide. And while the guy's crazy, he responds to that aptly.
Yeah?
And we don't need to talk about this anymore. Just watch the video. It's kind of fascinating, because... the interaction of the stupid cop, the woman who didn't have all her papers in order, and the crazy yet lucid freedom guy is really this intricate dance that probably is going to end in some sort of fun follow-up on Fark.
Yeah. It's just so weird to watch something with a crazy guy, and I'm usually would be against the crazy guy. And this health inspector lady, I imagine she is inspecting something, and it's probably a violation, and I would want that violation cleared.
Yeah, because the guy's like...
This guy's obviously up to no good.
He's like, I'm just
property.
moving dirt around. I'm just moving dirt around, and I keep thinking, yep, mass graves.
Yeah, this guy's doing something bad on his property, and this lady's going to find out and get him, and that's what she should do. But at the same time... you can't go on the dude's property without a warrant.
Plus,
what
this
the
guy,
hell?
How smart is this guy? He makes a point of getting them to present their badges and names, and he refers to the officer by name, pointedly, so it's all recorded.
And he comes out with a video camera. He's not like, it's not even like one of those low res, and he's pointing the camera in the wrong place videos. It's like he's got everything that you need to see covered.
Oh, you mean like all those videos of, oh, I captured a video of a UFO.
Yep. I imagine that his video is going to hold up in court, and all those pictures that the health inspector lady took are not going to be allowed to be submitted as evidence.
So
that's just my guess as a non-lawyer.
Well, we have a lot of lawyer listeners. So if any of you lawyer listeners are also residents of Indiana, if you could shed some light on this.
Or, if you could go look it up in your law database, what the law is in Indiana for health inspectors coming on your property.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of side with the crazy guy just because, the cop is always like, just be polite. And the guy makes a point of, I don't have to be polite.
Yeah, he starts out a little bit polite, but then He is sort of crazy, so he's as polite as a crazy guy can be, I imagine.
He's less crazy than a lot of people I've seen in the Bronx every day.
Yep. All right, so my thing of the day I have for you, a video game. Would you believe that? A whole video game.
Uh-huh.
In fact, it's a free video game. You could download and play it.
Oh, it's not?
No. I tried to play it in Wine. It didn't work. So if you got Windows, you can play this. I rebooted to play it, and I'm glad I rebooted to play it. I actually rebooted to play it like a couple weeks ago, and I forgot about it. The game is called Acid Bomb 2 Rearmed.
Was there an Acid Bomb 1?
There probably was. I think there was.
I mean, it's like when I was a kid, and we always saw Street Fighter 2. No one really had ever seen Street Fighter 1. So as far as we were concerned, there never was one. It just started with 2.
Well, there was. You've seen it.
I know. I've seen it now. In fact, you ran a tournament on it.
I did. Anyway, there was an Acid Bomb 1 that I never played and I know nothing about. Acid Bomb 2 it's an independent, kind of fun, unique sort of video game in that it combines Picross and Minesweeper. Basically, you have this grid, right? And some of the squares on the grid might have bombs, and the rest are just blank. You don't care about them, right? So there's some weird shape. And you have a crosshair, and the crosshair is a vertical bar that's completely across the whole top, straight from top to bottom of the whole map, and left and right, from all the way to the left and all the way to the right. And you can aim it at any square you want. Let's say you aim it at the top left square, right? Now, that's going to obviously cover the up and down row that is on the left and the horizontal row that is on the top. The game will tell you a number, the number of bombs that are covered by the widths and lengths of this crosshair. And you move the crosshair around, watching that number change as you move it, and you have to figure out where the bombs are.
Aha.
It was actually really fun, and they threw in a lot of curveballs and a lot of different sort of levels. Like, there were biological levels, and there were levels like you know how Minesweeper, you can put a flag to say this is not a bomb, this is safe. There are levels where they don't let you do that. There are levels where, like, more bombs will appear if you wait too long. There are all kinds of cool things, and the game started out easy and fun. It quickly got more challenging, and I got like 80% of the way to the end, and then I stopped. But if you have Windows and you have a free half hour, you should download this and play it because it's better than Minesweeper and Picross combined. Yeah,
what about World of Warcraft? How does it compare to World of Warcraft?
Well, it's not even the same genre, but it's definitely more worth your time to spend a half hour playing this than to spend a half hour in Azeroth.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So, talking about board games a lot, because we've been back into board gaming a lot, and we've been playing a lot of our board games entirely to death to the point that they're not fun anymore.
Yeah, to the point in which you have to buy expensive board games, which we're not sure if they're good or not, in order to just take a chance, because we need a game real bad.
What we really need to do is just get more people to move in with us, because we've played out all the 2-player games and all the 3-player games, and once we get another person, we can play out all the 4-player games. However, the game we're about to talk about, Vinci, is a 3 to 6-player game.
Yep. We actually talked about this game once before in an episode of Geeknights, but it was an episode where we talked about a whole lot of crap. So we're going to concentrate now on the whole game of Vinci and go into the details that we probably missed in that other episode. Of course, I didn't re-listen to that other episode, so I have no idea how much we talked about Vinci, but I don't care either.
That's fine, because Vinci is still one of my favorite games.
Vinci is a damn good game.
It's in my top 10 or 15, but easily.
Yeah, I say top 15 definitely, 10 maybe.
Well, partly because a lot of my games that would be in there, I've decided or discovered that they are flawed, or I've otherwise solved them. And once a game is solved, it's really not fun anymore. Like, Settlers is a great game, but I can't put it in my top 10 because it's not a great game anymore.
So Vinci is a civilization game. You've got Europe and the surrounding bits, mostly Europe.
Yep.
And over time, civilizations rise and fall, and they rise and they fall. And some are big and some are small, and some last a long time and some last not so long. And some are really good at mountaining, and some are really good at fighting, and some are really good at farming and whatever. And over the course of this game, each player builds civilizations and then lets them go in order to build newer civilizations.
Now, I think this is a really cool mechanic where you build a civilization and it has powers, whatever, and you move around the board in a deterministic, taking things from other players or from barbarians way. And then, whenever you think your empire has either been totally butt-fucked by someone, which happens fairly often,
Pretty often if everyone's good at playing.
or it's peaked, or whatever reason, you choose not to just get rid of it and start a new one, but to decline it. It falls into decline, much like the Roman or Byzantine empires.
Right, so let's say I don't have any special things, right? I build an empire that is 10 countries large, 10 areas on the map large. I'm getting 10 points a turn from that without anything special, right? So I decide, you know what? There's not really any way that I can expand this empire, because nothing increases in military might over time.
Except medicine.
Except medicine. Unless you have medicine, you're pretty much... Your strength of your civilization does not increase. It can only you just use the power that it has to expand over the course of a few turns, and then you just can't expand anymore. You can move around, but you can't get any bigger unless you have medicine. So the civ has reached its max. I got 10 spaces. It can't get bigger. I say, all right, I'm declining. I put little crumbling pillars on all those 10 spaces. And that place still gets me 10 points because it's still 10 spaces that belong to me.
Yep, but now you can't do anything with that empire.
I can't do anything with it. It's just a bunch of stuff on the board that gets me points and doesn't do anything.
Much like the later Byzantine Empire, it exists solely to be slowly picked apart by all the other players.
Yep. Everyone else will pick it apart, but you hope they pick it apart less quickly because you're still getting points from it, just not that many. Meanwhile, after I decline that empire, I make a new civilization that hopefully will get me many, many points. Hopefully it will get me many, many points while the old one still exists so that I can get a whole lot of points from both at once.
So the game goes around where each player will get an empire, build it, interact with all the other players, and then everyone chooses in a cycle when to decline and start new empires. And sometimes a bunch of people all decline at once. Sometimes one guy just gets screwed and has to decline early. Sometimes one guy just does really well and declines of his own volition. Actually, it's really funny. Several times you really get into this game with a theme because, you see, those are obviously the Finns, or that's the Romans, just the way the board sets up for the powers they have or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if some guy starts his civilization coming in on England and then he takes over France, it's like, ha 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 ha.
As opposed to, ha 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 ha.
Yes.
But many times we end up having a dark age where suddenly it'll go around and everyone will decline and the entire board just falls into darkness and decay.
It's fun. Quite fun.
Yeah, granted, we really get into our board games, but I think that anyone who enjoys board games, really and truly enjoys them, gets into games like that. You have to have your little shticks, your little playing around. And
well, that's what German board gaming is about. A guy wrote an article recently saying,
y'all got a brick?
Yeah, he's like, what's the difference between abstract games and Euro games? He's like, pretty pictures painted on the board. And the thing is, while I'm usually the kind of person who says it's all about the gameplay, the theme is whatever, when you play a German board game, it's not so much the theme itself that makes the game better. It's the fact that the way the players interact with the theme to add another layer of entertainment above the gameplay itself.
And every gaming group seems to have its own little bits and its own little inside things or ways they get into games.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
for
can
us,
range from just calling the pieces of the game
from other games,
like a different name than what it's supposed to be called. Like, imagine if you're playing, I don't know, let's think of an American game.
It's like you're playing Monopoly and you don't call it Boardwalk, you call it, I don't know, something else.
Yeah, or you don't call it free parking, you call it the car crash.
We tend to go around in a cycle. Like in Puerto Rico, there's a governor, and in Amon Rey, there's the pharaoh. But we tend to call the governor the pharaoh and the pharaoh the governor.
Yeah, or like in El Grande, there's a guy who's the king, but you just call him the penis because it looks like a giant penis.
Well, it looks like a very small penis.
Yes, but it's like, and you're not allowed to touch the king in El Grande, so you say, don't touch the penis. You're not allowed to touch a penis under any circumstance.
The thing is, people don't get that rule. No matter how many times, whenever we're playing with, someone always tries to do something with the penis.
I don't know what it is.
And it's always like, it was the only rule you had to remember.
Yep.
It was the first one.
So in Vinci, there's quite a bit of that because when you get a new civilization, basically there's a bag, and the bag has little chits in it. And on each chit is a civilization trait, such as livestock breeding or
weapons,
field general, or fortification,
agriculture,
something like that. And you draw these out of the bag in sets of 2, and each set of 2 is a civilization. And when you get a new civilization, you pick one of the available sets of 2. if it's been sitting out there for a while, you can just take it without any worries. If it's a new one, you kind of have to pay victory points to get it. This gives you sort of a bet. Early in the game, it adds a little randomness, but later in the game, it evens out because now civilizations that nobody wanted are now very enticing because you might even get points just for taking them.
It's very much a well-constructed, built-in balance system because the powers that civilizations can get are definitely not all equal, and civilization combinations can be stupidly powerful or stupidly useless. But the game will always increase the incentive continuously to take a bad civilization, and in the end, it's not that bad because, all right, so I've got...
You'll have a choice between taking a badass civilization but having to pay 10 victory points to get it before someone else does, or taking a shitty civilization that's been sitting there since the beginning of the game, but if you take it, you get 10 points. That's a tough call right there.
It also adds a lot of strategy where you might want to decline, but you don't want any of the civilizations out. Or what I do often is there's a civilization you want, but it's too far out on the track and too expensive. You all gotta wait for other people to decline before you can get it. But you gotta hope that no one just pays the price. But then again, if they do pay the price, then you get some victory points so you don't care anymore.
Yep. It's really a tough balancing act. But anyway, each civilization has these traits, and these traits, put slight modifiers on how that particular civilization is going to work. It determines how the military might of the civilization, how far it can expand, how quickly it can expand, and in what ways it can expand. For example, astronomy, if your civilization has astronomy, you can just expand all over the place because you can take the water for free because you can navigate. Whereas people without astronomy can't really go over the water that much at all. And they have to basically keep conquering adjacent land countries, not civilization. Yeah. So these traits add a lot of fun to the game because let's say you get barbarians and mountaineering, and you start in Norway.
I'd much prefer barbarians.
Yes, and you start in Norway. You go, ha ha ha, we are the Viking, ha ha ha, we get you, we crush you from the north. And it is quite fun.
I think the best description of all the powers is the barbarian one because it gives you a lot of guys. And the description is, barbarians have no special powers. There are just a lot of them.
Yep. I love them barbarians.
Now, the way combat works, because the board is a lot like Risk. In fact, it's almost exactly like Risk.
Without dice, though.
Yeah, on the board. I'm saying the board. Very specifically, I said the board.
All right.
Way to not listen.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so the board is a lot like Risk, and you have your little tokens that you put on the territories to show how many guys you have there. But when you want to conquer a place, it is straight up deterministic. It costs you X guys, and by cost, I mean you have to put X guys down on that place in order to take it. And you can expand to your heart's content until you run out of guys for that round. Then you pick all your guys up and reconsolidate however you want. So, because it's really simple. Basically, it costs, in order to take a place, you have to have 2 guys there, minimum, plus 1 for every guy the opponent has there, plus any modifiers, like if it's a mountain or a forest, which are harder to take, or it has a fortress there, minus any other modifiers, like if you have weapons or you're attacking from the mountain and all sorts of things like that. And if you put the number of guys down, that's it, and you took it. And the other person has to take their guys up.
Yeah, if they had 1 guy there, that guy dies. If they had 2 guys there, 1 guy dies, and the other guy they get to put in one of their other places.
Yeah.
If there are 3 guys there, 1 guy dies. Pretty much always 1 guy dies.
Anytime you take an opponent's place, one of the guys that they have left there is lost from their army or their civilization forever until they decline and pick a new one. Now you'll start with maybe, 12, 14 guys total. Unless you have medicine, you'll never have more than that. Every time you lose a territory, your civilization has been irrevocably weakened.
Yep. And it's never going to get stronger. Medicine is the only exception. If your civilization has medicine, it increases by 1 guy every turn. Just 1. That might seem pretty good. You have a civilization that grows in a game where civilizations can only shrink, and it can help, but if your civilization doesn't last very long, it's not going to help that much.
The problem I see most people having with medicine is that they tend to use it, and despite having medicine, which is good, and you want to hold on to that civilization for a long time, they hold on to a civilization longer than they should have just because they feel like they should because they have medicine.
Yep.
Well, a big part of this game is knowing when to just cut and run. Just figuring out, all right, this civilization is not doing anything for me. I got to dump it now.
Because the key way to win the game is you're gonna get
Well,
as many.
the key way to win the game is to be Alex.
That's true, but you want it. The way the game works is it's not whoever has the most points after so many turns wins. It's the first person to get X points wins. And let's say the guy who goes first, the first player, crosses the line, then everyone else still gets to take their turn to see if they can jump ahead. That way everyone gets an equal number of turns. But it's a race. So you want to get points is not just a lot of them, but quickly. So a plan that gets a few points early on and then a bunch later is not so good. You want to get points constantly, all the time, nonstop. And the way to do that is you want to get one civilization on the board because you start the game blank. And then you decline it and you get another civilization on the board. And that lets you get points from the declining civilization and your current civilization simultaneously. Then, when the old civilization is starting to get smaller, you decline the one you've got and you're bringing a new one, and you try to balance it so you're always getting points from a declining and a current civilization at all times. If you can keep that up, usually it's unrealistic to keep that up at full steam the whole game, but get as close to that as you can, and that's the way to get as many points as possible and cross the line before the other players do.
Now, one really fun thing about this game, because it's really rare in most German or Euro-style board games, is that unlike most other games, there is direct, straight-up, man-to-man fucking of players by other players.
And not the sexual kind.
You will have options that... some games you could hurt another player, but it always hurts you too, or isn't optimal. In this game, not only is it okay to just straight-up attack other players all the time, or to purposefully knock someone out of the game for a round, but it is often the best way to win.
Yeah.
In fact, when we first started playing this game, because we were used to playing Puerto Rico...
Sometimes the game even just forces you to hurt other people.
Yeah.
You have no choice.
But all these other games we were playing, we really were very congenial to each other. And we very much... people wouldn't step on each other's toes. We'd all kind of I'll build over here and you build over here. And there wasn't a lot of fighting, because you always felt like in any other game, whenever you directly attack another player, usually you just weaken yourself and them, and then some other player wins.
Yeah, it's generally, other games seem to have a lot stronger prisoner's dilemma mechanic, where if everyone just cooperates and no one fucks anyone, we can all get a lot of points, and this will become a game of who gets the most points. And if anyone decides to just, screw everyone, it's going to really just not turn out well for them, and the one guy who stays out of it, it's like, let's say me, Rim, and Alex are playing a game, right? And I attack Rim. Well, that hurts Rim, and it hurts me, and Alex wins. In Vinci, that is not the case. The prisoner's dilemma is not an accurate model at all.
Yep, in fact, in Vinci, pretty much, you have to always screw other players, particularly whoever's doing better than you, as hard as you can, as much as you can, while simultaneously getting points for yourself. It is a game that, I will say right now, if you cannot distance yourself from a game emotionally, or if you are the kind of person who takes it personally if another player, straight up just says, I am going to ruin you, and then ruins you in a game, you can't play Vinci. You will not like it.
You will not like it. There was one game I remember where I declined a civilization and I came off the board. I selected a new civilization that had quite a large military power. Alex came onto the board, and the board goes around, and then it was my turn again. There was really no option for me to come onto the board in a way that would get me a lot of points, because you can't go near your declining civilization. I'm not going to get into the rules of it, but needless to say, the best option for me was to come into the board in the exact same spot Alex had just come into the board. And I came into the board so strongly, I completely eliminated his entire brand new civilization that existed for only one turn.
I remember when it happened, and we're all sitting there looking at it. He just says, well, shit.
Yeah, he was just...
I declined.
I took all of his guys off the board. He could either try to come on the board again with his remaining pieces, which 5 of them were dead, or decline. I basically made him lose an entire turn, which is huge. Absolutely huge. And for me, it didn't bother me at all, because I put my guys on the board. I was going to put them on the board somewhere. I got them all on the board. They got as many points as they could have gotten.
Now, that's another really fun thing about this game. The board is set up to where different areas of the board are laid out kind of differently and have different strengths and weaknesses. And depending on the civilizations that come out, some areas become more or less desirable, or more or less defensible, or more or less point worthy, depending on what's out there. So say there's 3 civilizations that all need agriculture. Now all the places where there's agriculture nearby become hotly contested and dangerous to be in.
Yeah, but you can also look at the available civilizations and say, wow, there's 3 agriculture civilizations.
I'm not playing that game.
I'm going to take the, even though it might not be as good a civilization, I'm going to take the livestock civilization so I don't have to deal with that shit. And it might actually get you more points, even though judging from a general standpoint, it's not as good a civilization. It doesn't have as much military might. It doesn't have as much point bonus potential. But for the situation that the game is currently in, it might actually be superior in terms of how well you can defend with it, how long it will last, and how many points it will net you in total.
Now, like I said before, one of the really strong points of this game is also that it has 3 to 6 players, which is great because most games are 4-player or there's the few 5-player ones, but having that 6-player...
Yeah, and games that are, like, most games will be 3, 4, or 5 players, and some of them, like, only work well with, like, 4, and, like, the 3 and the 5 are kind of hack-and-eat.
Yep, like Tigris and Euphrates is 3 to 4 or 2 to 4, depending on what version you have, even though they're the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't work at all 2-player, and it works really crappily 3-player, but 4-player, it's one of the best games ever.
It's kind of weird, because the German version of Tigris and Euphrates says 2 to 4, and the English version says 3 to 4, but really, it's a 4-player only game, if you ask me.
But then Vinci, much like Puerto Rico, every number of players is the same basic game, but in terms of strategy and the way the game plays out, it's like an entirely different game. So you basically bought a 3, 4, 5, and 6-player game, each one of which is different.
Slightly different. I mean, the 4 and the 5 aren't so different.
But the 3-player game is a separate game with completely separate strategies, civilization.
Oh, yeah.
Like a civilization that is stupidly awesome in the 3-player game is kind of useless in the 6-player game, while a civilization that would win in the 6-player game is not so great in the 3-player game.
I think what it is when you're playing like the larger player games, the main difference in the rules is that every civilization is going to be weaker militarily. And the reason that is because obviously that way all the civilizations can fit on the same board at once. If everyone had a super strong civilization, then you just conquer the whole board and someone else would conquer the whole board. And in a 3-player game where you really only have to divide the board into 3, parts, you can have a pretty strong civilization that's large enough to conquer a third of the board. In a 6-player game, you really can only have a civilization strong enough to conquer a 1/6 of the board, or else the game gets screwed up big time. So, in a 6-player game, you tend to make civilizations that are smaller, yet have to get more points with less might, and deal with being adjacent to more players, and being on the board for a shorter period of time.
Now, there is some randomness in play, just in terms of the fact that a lot can happen between your turns as other players act. But it's not randomness that's just in the game. It's randomness of what other players will do, which are things that you can fairly readily anticipate.
Yeah, the only real randomness is what civilizations there are at the beginning of the game. Because it's possible that at the beginning of the game, the best civilization ever is the first one. Whoever gets to go first picks it, and hooray for them, they just got lucky.
However, the game lasts long enough and is constructed in such a way that one good civilization will, in most cases, not win you the game.
Yeah.
So
I think I've been paying attention, and people who go first and pick that awesome civilization right away, that tends not to be so they don't tend to win all the time or anything.
Well, it used to be that Alex won this game a disproportionate amount of the time.
Yep.
But now, just recently, the last several playings, pretty much every game ends extremely close, and one of us just pulls ahead by the end.
Yeah, I won.
Yeah, I won too.
All right. Everyone's winning this game.
Everyone's winning. I think we've solved the 3-player game, at least so far as nobody makes any boneheaded moves.
Yeah.
And everyone plays pretty optimally. And it comes down to very minor tactical decisions in terms of who wins.
Yeah.
Like literally, if I lose a game or Scott loses a game, it'll be like, in the middle of the game, I waited 1 round too long to decline that one civilization.
Yep, and that what did you in.
But the fact is, it wasn't random. It's, I made X mistake. Damn it.
Yep.
I don't know what happens.
I do sometimes feel, not often, but occasionally, one game every once in a while, like, there aren't any good civilizations coming up. Like, every civilization that comes up is crap.
Luckily, everyone has to deal with that.
Yeah, but the problem is, if there was, say, good civilization early on, and someone got it, and then everyone else gets crap, someone gets a slight lead, and if all the civilizations continue to be crap, they don't have a hard time maintaining that lead, and then they win.
Yep. But again, because the game is long enough, it really seems to mitigate that.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but it can happen.
And if you find randomness being a factor just by your style of play, there's nothing wrong with just adding another 50 victory points to the victory condition and then playing a longer game.
Yep.
The longer the game goes, the more the luck will even out.
Yeah, and also, if you really wanted to, you could develop some sort of civilization drafting mechanism. Of course, the game does have a civilization drafting mechanism.
A very good one, I might add.
But you could add to it to remove the drawing them out of the bag and somehow doing something else. I don't really know if you want to bother with that. I don't think it's necessary, but it is a possibility if you're really crazy.
Now, also, we talk a lot about German-style games, but this is actually a French game.
Oh,
it was designed by Philippe.
It is a game for France.
Philippe Keyarts.
Keyarts?
Yes. It was put out by Descartes Éditeur.
Éditeur. Oh, it is a French game.
This is the best. It didn't win any Spiel des Jahres or anything, obviously, because it's not a German game or anything, but it won the 1999 Concours International de Créateurs de Jeux de Société.
What is that?
The International Creators of Games Society Conference. Or something to that effect.
That's not bad.
Now, the guy who designed this game, he looks like he also made, as far as I can see, a game called EVO, which we've also played, which was kind of meh. But then again, we played it with some kind of meh people. And that was a long time ago.
Game. That game was meh.
Oh, no, wait. We played it with meh people and we played it with cool people. I played it twice.
I don't think... Did I play this game? I don't remember.
We played it at those other board gaming nights we used to go to. Not our WAG, but the other one.
Oh, I did play this game. Yes, I did. You're right.
And I think we also played it with Luke on a separate occasion.
Yeah, this game was meh.
Yeah, it was okay. It wasn't the greatest. I'd like to play it again, now that I'm a little older and wiser in the ways of German games. Because back then, I still thought El Grande was the hot shit.
Yeah.
I still like El Grande, but it's not the hot shit.
No, it's not. Okay, now here's something else you got to know about Vinci that has nothing to do with the game itself. There are two printings of Vinci. There's an old, busted printing with a lot of typos and all sorts of problems.
The one we have.
Yep. Well, Alex got it super cheap on the discount rack. So
all right, Alex owns that game, not us.
Yep. And
I always forget because it's in our house.
Yeah, and there is the new hotness printing that doesn't have these problems. And if you buy this game, I suggest you buy the new hotness printing unless you can get the old busted printing for the cheapness. See, if you can get the old printing for cheap, you can go and figure out what the corrections are on Board Game Geek, and you'll save a lot of money.
They're actually pretty minor.
Yeah, generally, you just want to avoid paying full price for the old busted version, and it is worth it to pay full price for the new hotness version. That's all I'm going to say. All right, one last thing about Vinci. If you want to play this game without buying it at the store in a box, or if you can't find it or something, you can play it online at a website called Ludogora, www.ludagora.net. It's a French website, so it's kind of hard to read.
French is not that hard to read.
Well, it's a little bit hard to figure out what to click on to be able to play the game.
But once you play in the game, at least.
Yeah, the interface is kind of bad, but you can play the game there, and it works.
Hey, it's not nearly as bad as that online Tigris and Euphrates that didn't even work.
No. Spiel by Web is still the best online board game turn-based playing site. But Ludogora exists, and they have Vinci. So if you want to play Vinci, you can head over there and have some Vinci fun.
I highly recommend Vinci because it is, in the very least, unlike many games we own, it has stood up to the test of repeated continuous play.
Yeah, I mean...
There aren't many games that we could play 3 times in the same day and not be sick of it. And this game is one of those few.
Yep, a lot of games get played out. You're like, I know the answer to this game. There's no point in playing it anymore. It's just an exercise in exercising our fingers, moving pieces around. But Vinci, it's still an okay game. I'm not always in the mood to play it, but I'm never going to say that, there's nothing else to be had with Vinci. No reason to play that anymore. Because it's not a solved game by any means.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.